So as I look again at 89A, just above where the recording before this one, this being B, I reflect now, a day later, so to speak, 4 o'clock in the morning. My whole analysis of, virtually, of Truman was, in a sense, being lost in the sort of world of his reality where God didn't come into it. Not my God, anyway. Not my Jesus story type view of God as I see it. Although obviously I was using ethics and principles that were from such, my view, but attending to a world context that didn't have such. And I think without my constantly referring back to my God view, I gained less from the analysis. For I would appreciate it more if I'd simply started from laying out that my Jesus view didn't come much into the consciousness, if at all, of the situation that Truman was in. President inheriting office, a bureaucrat, possibly one with a checkered history of obedience to whatever his masters had been in his career to date. That possibly Hoover could have some access to the information thereof and threaten him with. Blackmail him, in effect, you see. You are constrained to put up with me and do what I say, or else I can wreck your political career and ongoing, even as a president. I think Hoover probably had these sort of intentions. Whether he actually had or not, I don't know. But I should analyze it, I think, to great advantage by bearing in mind, well, why does God allow such? And after all, Truman was allowing Hoover to remain. I don't think Hoover was doing it from any ostensibly godly analysis point of view. I think it's unlikely. But he does live in a sort of pseudo-Christian type culture, so it may well be. And he'd have the ethics, to some extent, of the world in which he lives in, and his career to date, of course. You know, we can only love our God, the personification of what we truly value at present. Anything else is alien to us. It would be pointless saying, thou shalt love the Lord thy God, if it wasn't your God and the personification of what you value, because by definition, that's what you value. That's what you love. And to love something else that you don't value is a sort of self-contradiction, literally a self-contradiction, if our true self is our values. So again, the commandment actually, or principle, turns out to simply be a statement that has tremendous truth in it rather than command. That you can only love your God, nobody else's. It has to be the personification of your values, yourself, because that's who you are, or seem to be at present. And the hope, the trust is, well, if you do love your God with all your heart, soul, mind and strength, you're going to be trusting that he leads you in the right way. And the next question is quite simply, and does that seem to be the case? Is this a successful strategy? Is this the way I should walk ye in it? Or is it, complete unfaithfulness to the true faith, whatever the religion and the religious view is that's reigning at the time? There'll be many other views of God, but I suspect the only feasible one is your God. It's the only feasible one to you. And to ask someone to do something that's just not feasible, would of course be absurd. I say of course, but seems to be. So I could hit it from the outside point of view and say, well, if Truman had been a true follower of the true Jesus story as I see it. But that's not the case. It's as he sees what he sees and values. Did he in that context do the right thing? That's what would matter to him. But from my point of view, what matters to God? Because God is our loving dad and, thank God, the ultimate decider of things. Well, I suspect that he sees Truman as one of his children, same as you and me and Jesus. I suspect that's the case. That's, in a sense, my ideal, my values. And therefore, I certainly wouldn't condemn his children. We don't condemn our kids, for goodness sake. We love them. And I trust, in some sense, God's allowed Truman the freedom to do what he did do, and was well able to use it the way God chose the outcome to be. I see him as an all-powerful God that loves us. Tremendous assurance from our point of view, and in a context of overwhelming love. You may say, this is fanciful. I say, yeah, but it works. How do you mean? Well, it works in the sense that my life's been so much better since I've thought such. I've thought such increasingly over the last half century. That may seem a long time to someone who's, say, 24. But it doesn't seem a long time to me. And compared to eternity, it's less than a speck of time. Incredibly well spent, perhaps. If it does indeed win eternity, and even if it doesn't, I feel incredibly well spent in the joy and the peace it's brought me and brings me now. So I'm very hard to persuade to be otherwise, because this works, and I don't have the need of what you're offering. That I think is the valid and true outcome of both the seer who read the sand in North Africa to my dad during the Second World War, before I was born, of course, before he'd met Mum. And to the seer again, the palmist, who would pontificate about what success is and wealth, when he read in my palm that I would be associated with fame and success. And I said to him, what do you mean by it? Unfortunately, he spent the rest of the time telling me exactly what he meant by success. It was very worldly. It wasn't a great spiritual insight. And I was I was only about 18 or 21, I'm not sure. But I'm seeking something more deep than what he valued, and I knew that. So I took his prediction in a spiritual way, really, rather deeper than he meant. I don't mean I was obsessed with such. I just thought, I don't think he and I have quite the same eye to eye on what's the value in life. I've seen riches in my dad and it didn't do him any good. I've seen looks in mum and, well, it did me a great deal of good in that she's been very loving, but I'm not sure about the looks being so important as the love. In some sense, I was already moving spiritually by the grace of God and by the love and care of mum, you see. Let me pause. I'm not sure where this recording's going at this moment. Thank you, Heavenly Dad.